Has anyone told you? In Texas, once dubbed the proud heart of America, there are people who have to dig through trash every day to survive. Texas, with a population of over 30 million people and one of the strongest economies in the United States, is falling into a severe homelessness crisis. In just a few months, thousands of families have lost their homes, swept up in this silent yet brutal wave of homelessness. The Texas dream, once promised as a place where anyone could buy a house, live freely, and raise children, is now buried under heaps of trash, old gas stations, where people sleep in their cars and eat leftovers as a means of survival. In this video, we will step into the darkest corners of the second largest state in the United States to confront the truth hidden behind urban lights and the flow of oil money. Stay tuned until the end, because Texas is just the first chapter of a bigger story about an America fracturing into pieces right before our eyes. Texas was once a symbol of opportunity, a vast land where, with hard work, you could buy a house, raise 3 children, and dream of a peaceful old age. But today, in the heart of that state, those dreaming of a Texas dream have to bend down to rummage through trash bins in Walmart parking lots, hoping to find some food or fragments of their own hope. Texas 2025 is witnessing a silent frontline, where tens of thousands of people who were once pillars of society, once the pride of labor, are now pushed to the margins of society, in the literal sense of the term. Under the bridges in Houston, beside the empty parking lots in Dallas, in the vacant lots in El Paso, makeshift camps have sprung up like wounds no one dares to face, and no longer have the courage to bandage and heal. According to the latest statistics, there are more than 49,567 people living in homelessness in Texas. A staggering number when one realizes that so many people do not have a roof over their heads in one of the wealthiest and most developed states in America. But what makes people's hearts ache even more is the silent injustice hidden behind that indifferent number. Black people make up only about 19% of Texas's population, but they account for nearly 57% of the total homeless population, and they are 6 times more likely to become homeless compared to white people. Not because they are lazy or made the wrong choices, but because the barriers, economic, opportunity, systemic, have always been set up in front of them long before they actually hit rock bottom. Even so, in reality, homelessness is no longer just a story belonging to a minority group, because fragility has now spread to every family, every community. Just one time when the rent doubles, one time when the hospital bill exceeds your savings, or when the company you've been with for 30 years suddenly restructures. And then everyone will have to face the boundary between having a home and being on the streets. There is something truly cruel about the fact that those who once contributed to building America now have to sleep outside the very factories, roads, and schools where they once worked. That scene is no longer found in documentaries about distant places. It is in Houston, in Dallas, right at your feet when you step into the city center. And it continues to spread at dizzying speeds. Do you remember the 1980s, when owning a house in Texas was a source of pride, the beginning of a decent life? That generation, those who once believed in the American dream, now have to witness their children struggling with rent, or they themselves have to move in with relatives because their pensions are not enough to live on their own. Is it possible that what is breaking apart is not just a roof, but the very concept of an America we once believed in? What if one day we, those who have devoted our entire lives to America, become strangers on the very land we have built? Perhaps for those who still have a home to return to, music is a symphony that uplifts the soul, helping us feel comforted and more healed. But for the homeless people living near some convenience stores in Texas, Music, especially classical music, is gradually turning into a cold sentence. In a quiet corner of South Austin, where East Doltorf intersects with Park Lane, the sound of opera music plays incessantly, day and night.
Verdi?
But this is not the way the shop owner expresses their love for classical art, but rather sending a subtle message to those who have nowhere to go. Leave immediately. You are not welcome here. Mr. Patel, the owner of the 7-Eleven store at this corner, has quietly turned music into an invisible barrier to drive away the homeless who gather around the store. For 24 hours a day, he plays classical music and arias from speakers installed outside the store, with the aim of driving away the homeless who no longer have a firm place in society and the community. He shared that he feels helpless. No one from the city came to help. The lawn around the store is flooded with trash and horrifying items, everything so scary that the gardener refuses to step in. Customers were asked for money, and many were even harassed and cursed at if they refused. There was a time when he had to hire a private company to clean up, because there were no other options. For Patel, playing music is not cruel, it is necessary.
Studies have shown that classical music, opera music is annoying, and it keeps people from congregating.
In fact, these measures have shown clear effectiveness. Many customers confirm that the parking lot is now quiet, with no more scenes of homeless people lying around or loitering in front of the store asking for money. It cannot be denied that from a business perspective, this is a solution. But on the other side of that music is a wordless nightmare for those who have nowhere to go. A woman living in a nearby makeshift camp shared that the loud noises drove her crazy.
Absolutely obnoxious, and I don't know, it's just an absolute nightmare. Incredibly loud.
She recounted that sometimes the music could be heard even on the other side of the neighborhood. There was no way to turn it off, no place to escape, except to leave the area. They doubt whether they deserve to be treated like this or not. A voiceless resentment intertwined with every word, as if just because they are poor, they are punished with a sound no one wants to hear, as if their very existence is a crime. In Austin, everything has changed since 2021, when the city passed a ban on setting up tents, sitting or lying down in public places. Anyone who begs, sets up camp, or simply is present in the wrong place can be fined. The Texas state law then extended this ban statewide. And so, those people who once had a place to call home are no longer allowed to stay even under a few tarps under the bridge. In California, other stores, even in the subway, have started doing the same, using music to erase the presence of the poor. An opera piece plays through the night, not to beautify the city, but to silence the pain of those who have no voice. In a society that once believed music could heal, it is truly heartbreaking that now it has become a tool to make the vulnerable feel unworthy of existence. No need for barbed wire, no need to drive them away with violence. Just a loudspeaker, and a whole group of people pushed to the margins, while the entire city sleeps peacefully as if they had never been there. So, when does a piece of music cease to be art and become a sentence? And when we start playing music to erase humanity, what is left in what we call civilization? Texas, once hailed as a symbol of development, opportunity, and oil, now has a new type of mine, a garbage mine. Not a valuable resource, but a place where the homeless must sift through each nylon bag, each bin of scraps to survive in a booming economy, but with no place for them. Right under the shadow of Highway 59 in Houston, once the backbone of transportation and the pride of the state's infrastructure, Tent City has been cleared. No more tents, no more hastily erected shelters. Only the cold, empty land remains, along with the smudged traces of those who once lived there. A 53-year-old man who once worked for $12 an hour now just wanders a few blocks, carrying PTSD and anxiety, sleeping fitfully with one eye always open. And he is not alone. In San Antonio, once known as the military city, now it has the second highest number of homeless people in Texas, second only to Dallas. According to the latest data from the US Department of Housing and Urban Development, at least 3,398 people are currently living without shelter, more than in any year of the past decade. As winter approaches, people like Barefoot Blaine Carruthers, who have experienced life on the streets, look at those huddled in sleeping bags beneath store awnings with familiar eyes. It's getting cold, and many people still have to sleep on the streets. They don't need money, they need a hug and a little compassion. The shelter system in San Antonio is praised for being more effective than the national average, but no matter how organized it is, it cannot stop the fact that the number of homeless families is skyrocketing. Those who once had a house, a car, and a small savings account now have to wait their turn to get a spot in a 3-tier bunk bed at a temporary camp. Houston chose the quick and clean approach. The city plans to eliminate homeless encampments before the end of the year, with some people being taken to the Navigation Center in the 5th Ward. But information about how this center operates remains under wraps, as if helping the homeless is something that needs to be concealed. Meanwhile, the others, the ones not chosen, continue to exist quietly. They collect each plastic bottle, remove each beer can from the trash, and sift through discarded food bags in the parking lots of large supermarkets. No one calls it a job, but they do it every day because there is no other choice. In the heart of Texas, a state with one of the strongest economies in the United States, people are witnessing an unexpected sight. Americans digging through trash to survive. While Tesla electric cars zoom past on the highway under the bridge, an elderly person shivers with an old supermarket cart. While the upscale neighborhoods are adding more golf courses, just a few blocks away, a young mother doesn't dare to light a fire to boil water for fear of being discovered. The government still proudly announces the ongoing development of projects and constructions. But progress for whom? When 500 people are taken into the shelter, are hundreds more being pushed out of their homes because rent prices are skyrocketing? When a new center opens, 3 other garbage dumps become overnight shelters. From Houston to San Antonio, from Austin to Dallas, an undeniable truth is spreading like wildfire. Texas is no longer the promised land for everyone. So, how much longer will we continue to turn our backs? Until even our acquaintances have to sleep under a plastic tarp? Or until we ourselves start rummaging through the trash to survive another day? People still say Texas is a place where you can buy a house at a reasonable price and start over. But that was the story 10 years ago. Now, the so-called dream of home ownership is gradually being taken away from the people, not because they are not trying, but because the rules of the game have changed. A 3-bedroom house in the suburbs of Dallas, once listed for under $150,000, can now exceed $350,000 in just a few years. Areas like Austin or Houston are even worse, with home prices doubling in less than a decade. Meanwhile, wages have remained almost stagnant. Salaried workers, retirees with fixed pensions, all of them have been left behind. But the bitter paradox lies here. House prices are skyrocketing, while hundreds of thousands of houses are abandoned and people have nowhere to live. In many once thriving neighborhoods in San Antonio, one can easily encounter houses with boarded up windows, grass growing up to the knees, and backyards filled with trash. The houses that once echoed with laughter, lights, and family dinners are now just empty shells. Some were foreclosed by banks from the previous crisis, while others were bought up by investors and left abandoned, waiting for an opportunity to profit. Indeed, in Texas, there are currently over 1 million vacant homes that still exist despite the high demand for housing. But at the same time, thousands of people sleep on the streets, under bridges, or crowd into makeshift shelters. Why could it be like that? Because ownership is no longer about living, it's about investment. Large corporations, financial funds, and even international companies are pouring money into buying real estate in Texas. Not to live in, but to store assets. They buy entire neighborhoods, leaving them vacant, waiting for the market to rise. Meanwhile, the people of Texas no longer have a place to call home. Imagine this: a retiree living on about $1,500 a month from Social Security, facing an average rent of $1,800 in Austin. What do? They had no choice. They had no choice but to leave and live on the streets. Amid the homelessness crisis, people see empty houses locked up tight. Grass grows through the for sale sign. The unfinished apartments due to the investors going bankrupt. As for the real people, they are fighting for every square meter under the awning of the grocery store. The authorities say they are trying to encourage the construction of affordable housing. But while luxury high-rise projects are sprouting up, ordinary people are being pushed away from the city centre, a place with no buses, no supermarkets, no schools, no community. That's not living. That's existing in isolation. And so the silent houses stand there, like expensive coffins containing the shattered dreams of those who once believed in America. So when will housing be considered a human right, rather than a speculative commodity? And will there ever be a day when the people of Texas can return to their own city without having to seek permission from the investors' wallets? There was a time when Texas was seen as the new promised land for Americans struggling amid the cost of living crisis. When rental prices in Los Angeles hit the ceiling, when salaries in New York couldn't keep up with supermarket prices, many people packed their bags, gathered what little was left in their bank accounts, and set off for Texas. A place touted as spacious, breathable, full of opportunities. But like a bus that never stops, Texas is no longer a place where you can easily start over, especially if you are poor. Data from the US Census Bureau shows that Texas has welcomed hundreds of thousands of domestic migrants each year, especially those from California, Illinois, and the eastern states. However, not everyone who arrives brings possessions. Many people come to Texas because there is nowhere else to go. Those who have lost their jobs, lost their homes, lost hope, with a final belief that Texas is easier to live in. Initially, they went to Dallas, Austin, or Houston. But when housing prices in these cities skyrocketed, they were pushed out to the suburbs, and then even further away, until there were no public transportation options left, no community connections. In a small town on the outskirts of Houston, a man in his 50s lives in a truck converted into a home. He used to live in San Francisco, working as an air conditioning installer. But when he lost a big contract and couldn't pay the rent, he had to sell everything and move to Texas, where he thought he could start over. Now he is curled up in his car, more than 20 miles from the nearest hospital, without a fixed address to receive job applications. The government is at a loss. Non-profit organizations are overwhelmed. Support programs cannot keep up with the uncontrolled population growth. And so, tens of thousands of people are stuck, unable to return to their old homes and unable to move forward. And so, from the promised land, Texas gradually became a huge trap, a place where the poor come to survive, but then get stuck in a never-ending loop. No home, no job, no way back. Could it be that the very dream of a cheaper life has inadvertently pushed tens of thousands into an even more expensive reality? And how many more will have to pay the price just because they believe Texas is the last opportunity? When the temporary tents are dismantled, when the empty plots no longer have people huddled under tarps, one might easily think that the problem has been solved. But that is just a fleeting illusion, for what has been removed is the image, while the reality continues to smolder underground like a volcano about to erupt. In Texas, homelessness is no longer just an isolated story of a few streets. It has become a failing system, from urban planning, housing, healthcare, to even public policy. But instead of facing the issue head-on and planning for the long term, the city authorities chose a familiar path, passing the blame around. When asked about the crisis, the city government often points fingers at the state government. The state government, on the other hand, accuses non-profit organizations of poor management. The state government, on the other hand, accuses non-profit organizations of mismanagement. The public blames the homeless for being lazy and unwilling to improve their situation. The people blame the homeless for being lazy, not willing to improve themselves. As for businesses, they only hope to clean up to protect customers and profits. In that vicious cycle, the only one without a voice is the one who has to bear all the consequences. In Austin, where there used to be a more open policy towards the homeless, city leaders have reversed course under pressure from voters. The ban on tent camping was reinstated in 2021, turning the act of sleeping on the streets into an illegal act. The police can fine or even arrest people who are simply trying to survive overnight. Texas once prided itself as a symbol of free development, an open market, and unrestricted growth. But that very laxity is causing this state to pay the price. Because you cannot leave the housing issue to the free market and then hope that low-income people can compete equally with real estate investors. When everything is blamed on each other, indifference becomes the default policy. As for the people, from those living stably to those on the brink of losing their homes, they are left stranded in a maze with no way out, not knowing whom to turn to for help, not knowing whom to trust, and not knowing what the future holds. And by the time the authorities take action, it may already be too late for the thousands who have exhausted themselves sleeping in the rain, eating from trash bins, and being punished just for resting in the shade. When will Texas stop shifting responsibility and start truly listening to the faint voices being drowned out by cold decisions? From the opera music playing in the middle of the night in Austin, to the garbage dumps in the heart of Houston, where people have to scavenge for food. From the abandoned houses that no one is allowed to enter in San Antonio, to the tents being dismantled on a rainy night. The picture of Texas emerges not just as a state struggling with crisis, but as a snapshot of America changing in an unwelcome direction. More than 30 million people are living on a land that once promised freedom and opportunity. But today, too many of them are feeling lost in their own homeland. A place where just a small incident can turn life into an inescapable hell. And in all those stories, perhaps the most heartbreaking thing is not the poverty, but the indifference that is becoming the new normal. When we are no longer surprised by the sight of people scavenging for food, no longer startled by seeing entire slum neighborhoods erased, and no longer feel a pang in our hearts when someone says, "I just want a place to sleep without being chased away," then it is not just the collapse of a state, but the collapse of humanity. What do you think about the collapse in Texas? Please share your thoughts in the comments section. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to support the channel and stay updated with our latest videos. Thank you for watching and see you in the next video. This video is created to analyze and reflect a real slice of life in Texas, with the aim of sparking reflection and positive dialogue within the community. All information, images, and data are illustrative and cited from publicly available, reliable sources. We do not hold any individual or organization responsible, nor do we draw absolute conclusions. Viewers are encouraged to approach the content with an open mind and continue exploring from various perspectives.
Thank you for shopping 7-Eleven. For your safety, the parking lot is